Coach Nicki Collen and the Baylor women's basketball team have 3 new transfers, 2 of which coming from the SEC, building next year's roster, the first complete roster she's had at Baylor. And who knows those players better than a guy who's had to scout them multiple times? Mike Neighbors from the University of Arkansas women's basketball team joins the show to tell us what Baylor is getting. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, Drake Toll here with Sikkim 365 on Locked On Baylor. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And we are joined from a guy who is on the hill today and eternally now, Mike Neighbors, the head coach of the University of Arkansas. And this guy has had to scout Dre Edwards from Kentucky, Aijha Blackwell from Missouri multiple times. And Coach, first and foremost, the transfer portal, the NIL, as the game becomes free agency and a business, how vital is the portal in general for teams to stay afloat?
Well, I think it depends on your roster. You know, you have some that are drastically been affected by it and others that have been minimally affected. We've all been affected in some way, but, there's probably in the bell curve, you've got your extremes, but it's roster management's a thing. You know, none of us got into this with that being part of our job, but, man, you have to be either aware of it, not only for your own, but who you're going to be competing against, who you're scheduling, people you're going to be playing that upcoming year. So, it has certainly been a topic that around the office you have to talk and discuss and stay on top of every single day.
Does it feel like, obviously, you know, you could be a team that brings in 4 or 5 freshmen every season, is reloading from the pool of freshmen that are coming in. But if you don't have a couple of transfers rolling into your program, it feels like you're going to sink just from an experience standpoint. Is there almost pressure, no matter who you are, to bring in at least 1 or 2 freshmen each year?
Maybe. I don't know. We probably won't know for a couple of years, but I do think you're going to really start to diversify what programs are doing. You know, we chose to play our freshmen last year. Started 3 of them, played a 4th one, a ton of minutes. And there were nights we'd go in against LSU and they had a pro team out there. You know, 5- and 6-year kids, and it showed. But I do think it'll come back together with the effects of COVID running its course. But I think you're going to really kind of start to silo programs into ones that are going to develop and recruit freshmen and ones that are just going to build through the free agency year after year after year. I think the teams that get wishy-washy and go back between, it's got to work. You know, there's going to be some risk reward in there, but it is exciting to watch. I check it every single day, and yesterday with May 1st being the deadline, I think you're going to start to see a flood of commitments in this next week or so.
Now, obviously, the loss of NaLyssa Smith for Baylor and Queen Egbo, they're huge. NaLyssa Smith, one of the top 3 players in college basketball this last year, number 2 pick in the draft. And now you have to go somewhere, transfer portal or freshman, to replace those. And it's tough to find someone who's 18 years old coming out of high school that's going to be NaLyssa Smith, right? She wasn't even that coming out of high school. So Baylor's then gone to the portal to get someone like Aijha Blackwell or Dre Edwards, 2 players who have crashed the boards, shown they've got size, shown they've got skill and capacity to play at a high level. And I want to start with Aijha Blackwell from Missouri. Blanket statement, cast a wide net, see what you think. When you hear the word Aijha and Blackwell back-to-back, what do you think?
Matchup nightmare. You know, you put Michaela Daniels was always our stopper, and next thing you know, they're posting her up. You know, so then you put a bigger kid in on her, and now they're bringing her out to the perimeter, putting her in a ball screen. She's shooting behind screens. She's driving it to the elbows. She added the rebounding the last 2 years. She was always a good rebounder, but she became maniacal. I mean, it was one of those, I don't care whether you get the rebound or not, face guard her, push her, shove her, do what you got to do to knock her off her path, but don't let her get them. But you think matchup nightmare when you think of her, because she can exploit you. You can't just have plan A and B. You better have C and D ready to go too.
Coach, 15.4 points per game last year in 31 minutes from Missouri. She had 2 assists, 13 rebounds as well. Certainly jumped off the page the last 3 seasons, all 3 years being all SEC in some capacity. What is it in general about her game that sets her at a 6-foot tall guard too Is that almost a misnomer to say that she's a guard, or is she truly that?
Well, until people start rebounding with the top of your head, I could care less how tall they are. You know, this kid, she's explosive. She's got a rare combination of speed and power. You know, a lot of kids have one or the other, or she's got them both. It just sounds different when she catches the ball in the wings and drives it. The ball bounces harder. Her feet hit more impactful. When she crashes into you, it's more of a collision. It's just the pace at which she attacks the basket. And then whether she has the ball or whether she's going to get a miss. And she has been a problem for everybody in our league. To put those numbers up, you know, against the competition that she has, you can expect production from the second she steps out there.
On the flip side, too, you have Dre Edwards, who a lot of folks were especially welcomed into in the SEC when she hit that three-pointer against South Carolina in the SEC championship game, a 10-game win streak that she helped jolt for Kentucky this past year. Her stats at 29 minutes a game, 17 points, 8 rebounds. I'm going to throw you the same dang question. You hear the words Dre and Edwards back-to-back. What do you think?
I'll throw you the same dang answer then. Matchup nightmare. How about that? I saw the kid when I was on the West Coast, you know, at Washington, and she's coming out from she played on a team out of Utah for a while and a team out of California. And you just saw this, again, who cares how tall she is or isn't? Who cares how fast or slow you think she is or isn't? You look up and she's got 15 and 15 on you. And she can impact the game with or without the ball. She can guard multiple positions. She came in to, you know, when she transferred in as the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year to Kentucky, it moved them up a slot in their preseason. And in my mind, I was like, oh, man, they just got another impact player. And then obviously everybody remembers the run that they went on and her hitting that big three-point shot. But, you know, when Kentucky in the middle of the year, when they went through a little lull, it was because she was out.
Yeah.
I mean, she is what, you know, a lot of teams, they have what they have, but then there's this one player that's the difference maker. She's always seemed to be that. You know, she made the difference as to whether you were like, hey, we got a shot against Kentucky, or, man, we're going to have to play really well to beat them. She's that type of kid. She can play multiple spots. She's not going to be, again, don't worry about how tall she is or she isn't. She'll be able to play just fine against the people that Nicki matches her up against.
So you have two players who are a matchup nightmare. Parlay them together, and how tough does that make the Baylor Bears next year?
Well, you put them with the way their guards shot it late in the year. And, you know, you've got some good incoming players. You know, we recruited the same type of kids, and we recruited Bella and we recruited Smye. We recruited those kids. So we know the types of players they've got coming in there. And it's going to be fun to see how Nicki puts them all together. You know, how you do mesh incoming freshmen with, you know, probably going to turn 23 or 24-year-old kids. That's a big gap. You know, that's a big gap. But we all sent Taria congratulations and a thank you for getting those players out of our league. Keep up the great work down there in Waco, and don't let players go within the leagues. Keep them going some other place. Not have to worry about having to guard those two matchup nightmares.
Coach, the last question I'll throw to you before we get into Nicki Collen, the full scope of her work in year one. Jana Van Gytenbeek, who is coming from Stanford. I know you haven't competed against her in the SEC, but I'll give you one stat from Jana. She made 18 shots last season for Stanford, all season.
Yeah.
And 17 of those shots were three-pointers that went through the bucket.
Yeah.
Talk about consistency, huh?
Yeah. Well, and I saw her young too, because she's from out that way. I think she's from Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. I saw her at the 3-on-3 championships, and she was playing with a kid that we had signed, so I watched her play a lot. She's going to be a kid that can puncture the paint and kick out, and if you kick it out to her, expect her to shoot it and make it. You know, I think she got in a situation at Stanford where there was a log jam of people that could do that. So I would predict she'll make 17 threes before Christmas. I'll go out on a limb and tell you, I think that's a kid who, given the opportunity, you know, I know you've got Jada back, and Sarah. Is Sarah coming back too?
Yeah.
Andrews is back. Well, Jordan Lewis is gone, right?
Yeah, as of right now, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So with those two guards, and she'll jump in there and compete. I would tell you, she's a Big 12 type player. You know, when you see her, you think Big 12. So it's gonna be a fun class. You guys got a lot to look forward to.
Well, as excited as we all are about that, there's also a lot to kind of wrap together after this past season for Baylor women's basketball. I want to do that with you, Coach. But
Okay.
first, I got to tell everybody at home about Built Bar. Trust me, Coach Mike Neighbors is not going anywhere. First, I want to tell you about Built Bar, though, because right now you're getting your summer bod ready. You got to get in shape to go to the beach or wherever you may be going this summer, and you don't have to take a hit to your daily nutritional routine when you institute Built Bar. The reason why is Built Bar is like a candy bar, right? They have these puffs that's 100% real chocolate, but it's only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs. The candy bars that you eat and I eat, 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, dozens of net carbs. So when you're getting ready, building the beach bod, try to get chiseled before you go to Panama City or Cape Cod like some of us, Built Bar is your way to go. Don't sacrifice your routine with all the gross green vegetables. Instead, go to Built Bar, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar. Again, it's the way to go. Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off at Built.com. Again, that's Built.com. Promo code LOCKED15. Now, Coach, the big question for Nicki Collen coming in, and this goes across the board for anybody, is how do you replace the legend? How do you replace the one that built a program into what it is? And it feels like one of the toughest things to do in sports.
I mean, you can only really point toward one person maybe that's ever pulled it off at Kentucky when Joe B. Hall came in. I think he's the only person to ever really kind of win a championship after replacing a legend. So, I mean, yes, in women's basketball, historically, when there's been changes like that, it's taken time to stay competitive. There's usually a steep drop off, which I don't think you guys experienced whatsoever. You got a team that was competing for the Big 12 championship down to the last day. So, and in the finals, went to the finals of the tournament, right? Them in Texas, wasn't that the finals? So, yeah, I mean, I know everybody's going to say, they didn't win it. Well, don't get too greedy. It's hard to win. It's hard to win any time, but especially when, like you say, you're following a 10 or 11 game tournament streak or whatever it was. So if anybody's being too hard, let me know. I'll come down there and stand behind her and tell everybody how hard it is to do what she just did.
So you look at, too, one of the things that has been mentioned this week by a lot of people around the program is as these transfers are coming in, she didn't have a team that could scrimmage against itself last year because she only had 7 or 8 players that really saw valuable minutes. And in a new head coaching role, that just feels like it's going to make it exponentially tougher. I know you've been there, too, when you get into a program and it's like, oh, geez, man, you're just thin.
But I think she was very wise. I think, her experience and then her circle, having, Tom to talk to all the time, I think she showed a very high level of wisdom in having roster flexibility. A lot of coaches will come in and think, oh, we don't have enough, let's just fill this roster up. Then you don't have the ability to flip it, and rather than take kids just to have bodies, they were very selective. And I'm sure there's times that she wished they could have been able to play 5-on-5, but I also know she probably went out and found a men's practice team that was able to pull that off for them. There's ways to get around it, but I think it showed a lot of wisdom to wait, be patient, let it all shake out, and then start to build the thing rather than bring in 5 or 6 kids that might not have been what she was looking for, and have them be on the roster when now with this transfer portal, you have the opportunity to flip it. And I think if you look at their roster going in, you got to give it a really high mark for having excitement and potential for what next year can bring for that roster.
Coach, one of the tough questions that I've kind of been warring with over the course of the season, the offseason now is, especially from a recruiting standpoint, was it Baylor or was it Kim Mulkey? Because she obviously created a brand that was so big all on her own. So even you talk about replacing a legend, it becomes even tougher when you have a coach who is a brand within herself. To you, do you think Kim Mulkey or do you think Baylor?
It's a combination. It's not A or B. There's a C. There's a C answer. Both of the above. It's a combination of those things. I do think players are starting to choose coaches, though. I mean, there's just too much evidence out there to show you that. You see coaches leaving programs, and those kids just follow them to the next. And I think that would have happened in the past if that would have been a possibility. So I'm not saying that's ever changed, but I do think more so than ever they're playing for the coach and that staff. The school has to reach a certain threshold. You have to be able to have facilities, and you have to have recent success, and you have to have the resources. over a certain threshold. But then after that threshold is met, now it is who's that head coach. And obviously, when I know in the past, whenever I hear Kim Mulkey's coming to see a kid, the same kid I'm seeing, I'm like, oh, this just got harder.
Yeah.
So wherever she's at, no matter where she's at, she's always going to carry that because her resume, quite frankly, stacks up as one of the 2 or 3 best resumes in the last 20 years. And I don't think many people would know that. I think a lot of people would maybe put her further down. But when you really dissect her lineups, she's right there with what Gino and Tara have accomplished and ahead of them in some aspects. Some of the big wins, some of the percentages of tournament games won. So, to say that she doesn't have an impact would be naive, and it would be a wrong answer. But Baylor in and of itself, the university, the academic reputation, the recent success, the success in all their sports, it's a factor too. I think Nicki's success at the college level as an assistant and then at the pro level gave an opportunity to bridge that gap. But sure, yeah, Mulkey's a brand, and the fact that she's geographically located close enough to impact it, there's going to be a lot of Baylor LSU showdowns when it comes to recruiting. There's no doubt.
Well, if you don't mind, especially during head-to-head matchups, just call Nicki. Whatever you've been doing against Kim Mulkey has worked without fail. So if you just want to throw some pointers our way every now and then.
Well, my only thing is I hope LSU, we only play them once a year for a while because we can stay ahead on that win-loss category for a few years anyway, I hope. But no, listen, when it comes to X's and O's, I would love to sit at that dinner table with Tom and Nicki anytime, and I'll just take a bunch of notes and listen. They're going to get it right. I would love to see an LSU Baylor matchup, though. I might, that might be like we were talking about before we went on air. That might be a return of Turnpike Troubadours type thing.
Jeez, the world – no, that's a return of cross-Canadian ragweed. That's what that is.
Or how about a split set, cross-Canadian with Turnpike Troubadours, equal billing.
Wow, we've with Rolling Stones. I think that was the other one you threw out there. So you got 3. Yeah, can we make it that big?
Ones.
Well, I think obviously the world's going to burn that day when it's inevitably going to happen when Kim Mulkey plays against Baylor. Certainly not in the non-conference. I can guarantee it'll have to be a tournament.
But the committee has a way of getting those matchups somehow as possibilities. So I'm going to say we see LSU and Baylor in the same region at least 3 times in the next 5 years. How about that? Let's see how right we are.
They're going to try to make it happen. I know that.
They're going to try.
As much as possible, which the publicity that it would bring is certainly a draw within itself. But Coach, last question I got for you here before we get out of here and talk men's and women's tennis, because that bracket is being released and that's going to cover our show for segment 3 today. But you look at the season last year for Nicki Collen, 28-7. In her opening press conference, she, I asked her the question, said, what gives you the confidence to step into your first head coaching role in college basketball at a place like Baylor? And she said, I don't know. I just know basketball, and I know that that's what I'm going to bring here is just a knowledge of the game and a love for the game. And she's shown that. Been great at PR in her first year. She's brought in new players, and it seems like the trajectory is there to continue trending up. What does Nicki Collen have to do in year 2 even at Baylor to show that this is the long-term option for the Baylor Bears?
Yeah, I think just continuing to do exactly what they did this year and find a way to advance deep into that second week in the tournament. I mean, that's the standard that they've set there. She knows that. Her answer was, again, very wise in saying she didn't know, because you don't know till you do know. She obviously showed her preparation for that, but I'll be interested to see their non-conference schedule. I haven't seen it yet, so I'll be interested to see how they're going to go out and challenge themselves. I know their league will continue to be a 5 or a 6 team out of the Big 12 going into the tournament, so their league's going to be challenging. But I'll be anxious to see their non-con, see who they're going up against and how they're going to go out and prepare for a young team mixed with some veterans. But if they're playing in that second weekend, that's something we all kind of use as our pinnacle. If you're playing into that second weekend, you've got your team peaked at the right time. You've probably caught a couple of breaks. You've probably been injury-free, and you've probably won a close game or 2 at the buzzer or 1 possession games that can flip around. But I know her. I know that family well enough to know that they're not going to be satisfied till they hang another banner down there. And you don't go to Baylor not knowing that that's got to be down the road at some point. But I think in year 2, if you see that team playing on that second weekend and competing within their league, then that trajectory should still be considered going up.
I love it. Coach, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, you bet.
Absolutely. Now, next, men's, women's tennis teams have found out where their location is going to be. We hear from Coach Scrivano and Coach Woodson as they begin the NCAA tournament. But first, I got to tell you about Rock Auto. So this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models across the nation, you need one place where you can go that won't make you feel bad for not knowing what exactly you need. Here's my example that I like to give. I have a Nissan Maxima, right? So I go into the auto body shop. I got in a wreck recently. They're like, all right, you have a Nissan Maxima. Yeah. What year? 2016, I think. And they're like, all right, what type? And I'm like, a car type, a sedan? Well, apparently there's like a Nissan Maxima XL and XR and BWMT and you name it. It probably exists, and they're going to make you feel bad for not knowing. They're like, oh, they're going to be frustrated. But at Rock Auto, you can find exactly what kind of car you have really easily and without the hassle of having to be made fun of by a mechanic out there. So right now, save time and money when you use Rock Auto, whether you choose, say you need a Honda Odyssey pump. I'll say this, fuel pump, that's like $353 from a chain store, $216 at Rock Auto. See, save a ton of money. Rock Auto is a family business. Its prices are reliably low for every customer. And right now, go to rockauto.com, see all the parts available for your car, right? Locked on in the how did you hear about us? So they know that we sent you. rockauto.com, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. All right, I know you can see if you're on YouTube, the lights have gone out for a strategic purpose. One being it's a cool transition. Two being it feels like a spotlight of a selection show because Baylor men's and women's tennis just had their selection shows and found out where they are going in the postseason. The women's tennis team, number 26 in the nation, punched their ticket to the tournament for the 23rd time in program history, 16th time under head coach Joey Scrivano. They are going to play in College Station in the Texas A&M Regional. They drew Washington. Washington's 14-11 overall. And per Scotty B, the Baylor King, Washington's lost 7 of their last 8 matches, 2 of which came against Washington State, their rival, who is not going to the NCAA tournament. Washington's in a slump, and they'll be without their second best singles player this weekend. So Baylor women's tennis team playing in College Station. If you feel like making a trip out, go see them play 10 a.m. on Friday, George P. Mitchell Tennis Center. If they advance, they'll play the winner of number 7 seed Texas A&M and A&M Corpus Christi. Now on the other side, men's tennis, number 3 in the nation. They found that out on Monday, and their first and second rounds will be in Waco, hosting at the Hurd Tennis Center. They will play on Friday against Abilene Christian, and if they win that game against Abilene Christian, they'll play the winner of either Tulsa or Texas A&M, likely going to be Texas A&M as well. So you can go catch Baylor men's tennis in action at home, 26-3 overall against 12-11 Abilene Christian. The men's tennis team, this stuff is nuts. These statistics, second time since 2015, they've been a top 4 overall seed. They're 26-3 on the season, as I mentioned. Number 3 team in the nation, according to ITA and Oracle. In their history, they're 59-21 all-time in NCAA tournament play, 32-1 when hosting in Waco. They're hoping to keep that. It's not a streak necessarily, but a lot of wins alive this weekend, I would guess. They are coming off their 25th overall conference title, the most of any Baylor team. How about that, men's tennis, after beating number 1 TCU in Fort Worth? Here's what Coach Michael Woodson and Joey Scrivano, the men's and women's tennis team, had to say when they were at their selection shows on Monday.
First thoughts on third seed and getting to host the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have an opportunity to host, the first rounds of the NCAA tournament, you've had a great season. I think these guys deserve it, and what they said about being one of the hottest teams in the country is true. But once you get into the tournament, it's, you're playing champions in different conferences, some of the best teams in the country, so nothing's for granted, but certainly an advantage for us to play at home.
I guess the seeding wasn't going to change that much, but, you beat the number 1 seed twice, so is there any chip on the shoulder maybe for that? Or?
TCU's had a great year, and they won national indoors, and they've beaten a lot of the top teams in the country. So they've put together a great year, I think, as have we. And understand it goes by a point system, and they were, a point and a half ahead of us in Florida, so completely understand. And they beat Florida head-to-head, so I kind of figured that was going to happen, and, they've earned it, so we'll let the pressure be on them.
What's the overall thoughts just of how that 4-team region breaks down for you guys?
I think, 3 really good teams. Abilene's one of the best, most improved teams in the region. We had the opportunity to play them earlier this year, and, they're a totally different team than they were last year, and really excited to see them have the success that they had in conference. I think Juan's a great coach, and he's got great players, so really happy for them, and I know it's going to be a really difficult match. And gosh, Tulsa and A&M, that's going to be a war. 2 really good teams that have great depth, that, coaches with great experience will have their players ready. So it's going to be difficult.
Does the message to your team change at all now that you get into this kind of postseason play?
We're just trying to make sure that we're clicking, at the right time. I feel like our guys are all putting in the work, and they're, the preparation's been there, the opportunity's in front of us, and we're excited. I think, for us, it's trying to take it one match at a time, and put our best selves out there and compete as hard as we can. We have to take advantage of the opportunity to play at home. It is an advantage to play on our home courts in front of our fans in a comfortable environment, and these matches aren't easy. We are going to get everybody's best shot, and the fans make a difference. In the finals last week in Fort Worth, we legitimately had a home court crowd as that match ended, and I think it really pushed us over the edge. It gave Matthias and Sven what they needed to get the job done. So, any fan that is available that can make it, it's 100% worth it, and it will give these guys the boost that they need to get it done.
Well, it's great. It's a great draw for us, but more importantly, we just got to focus on the things that we can control and bring our attitude and gratitude and our effort. So those are the main things.
I guess after Big 12, you kind of knew you probably wouldn't host. Was that still a little disappointment, though, or just kind of knew where you were?
Well, you never go into the season with small goals. You go after big goals, and sometimes you fall short, but ultimately we still have our biggest goal ahead of us, and that's what we're focused on.
What is the message to your team as you get ready for the postseason?
Yeah, just focus on the things we can control. When you're coaching young people, they get distracted very easily, and they get caught up in the wrong things sometimes. So right now we just got to get our minds right, just be present, and we can beat any team in the country, but we're going to have to show up and really be where our feet are.
Coach, what are your overall thoughts just on Washington as an opening match?
Yeah. We've traditionally played home and away with Washington in our non-conference, so we know them pretty well. They've had a great season. For them to make the tournament, that says a lot. So we're really familiar with them. They're familiar with us, and it's going to be a great match.
Again, that was Coach Michael Woodson and Joey Scrivano with Baylor men's and women's tennis. Big weekend for them in the NCAA tournament. Come back tomorrow for Locked On Baylor as we break down more of the spring football stuff. It's still, we're coming off the high of NFL draft as well. And Matthew Meyer, dude, will never play for Baylor again. What's his legacy? We'll talk about that and more on tomorrow's show. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Big 12. Get all your Big 12 news in a half hour or less with Big 12 expert Josh Neighbors. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Hey, I'll tell you what, you come back tomorrow, here's what you're going to get out of this. You're going to get something that you got today and will get for the rest of your life. You're going to get Locked On Baylor. Thanks for joining.